Hello and welcome. Brothers and sisters in the Dharma, brothers and sisters in aging, sickness and death. These are two phrases so often heard in Buddhist circles and seemingly are somewhat pretentious and maybe a little aggravating, disturbing to be reminded continuously that you will get old, you will get sick, and you will die. Or we can look at the positive aspects of this realization, which is, after all, only the truth. So, the first comment here, I think about aging, sickness, and death a lot. And I hate this existence and the world. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I wasn't expecting that. And I hate this existence and the world. I'm sorry to hear that. Firstly, wherever you are, whatever it is you're doing, take some comfort in the fact that you are not alone. The reflection or the realization on aging, sickness and death, this reality of all beings' existences, can be something that to some extent rocks the boat. But if you think of a ship with many people, and let's say taking the reality, but the story we've heard of the Titanic, and it's sinking, a big sinking ship. A ship they thought unsinkable, as we sometimes think about our own existences, our own lives. We're brought up, we're educated, we're conditioned to gain things, acquire things, succeed, do things well, be well thought of, and enjoy life. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as we enjoy whatever it is we have and we have acquired and we have attained to the best of our abilities, without clinging on to it, grabbing on to the sides. So with a ship, you might envisage a group of people on a sinking ship, all panicking and scrambling and grabbing onto anything they can grab hold of in order to preserve their lives and indeed the lives of others. Eventually, once all of the, as in the case of the Titanic, not enough life rafts, being as it was thought of as an unsinkable ship, there were not enough survival crafts to take all of the number of passengers away from the sinking ship. So those that remained were bound to go down with the ship. You have two options: panic, scream, even climb. If it was an old sailing ship, you might have seen pictures or heard stories of sailors climbing up to the very top of the mast, to the crow's nest, that basket on the top of the mast, to just cling on to dear life and save themselves till the last moment. But even then, that mast sinks deep into the sea along with them and all those who have sunk before them. This is clinging on for dear life, an expression we hear. The suffering, the pain, the hate of this existence and the world is coming from that place of clinging on, scraping one's fingernails down the side of this sinking ship as it goes down, painfully ending your days. Or alternatively, or, as happened in historical records anyway, we're told, the band formed their little ensemble on the deck and started playing music. I can't remember what the tune it said that they played, but some rousing music to support all of those people on the ship who were about to die. And in times of disaster, people come together and help each other. People, communities, even countries are no more supportive than each other than in times of devastation. Cyclones and floods, earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, even war. We've heard all of the stories and history from those communities afflicted with such. How everybody supports each other with loving kindness, compassion. Two of those very stabilizing and immeasurable qualities we develop through this practice of Buddhism, that of loving kindness for all beings and compassion for all beings, to do what we can where possible to help. In the case of that sinking ship, this was inevitable. There was nothing that could be done, but those band members knew that with their playing, with their entertainment, that end would be less troublesome for all. A small part, but a very big part. And there are so many examples in communities such as this. And this is what we mean by brothers and sisters in aging, sickness and death, or brothers and sisters in the Dharma. The Dharma being, in this sense, this context, the truth of existence. All things are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and out of our control. When we come together as Buddhist communities or other like-minded communities with this knowledge, we automatically, naturally, become supportive of each other, as those people on a sinking ship do. Now, of course, there will always be those outside of the Dharma whom will continue clinging, will climb that mast to the bitter end, scraping their fingernails, physically hurting themselves, causing additional pain and suffering, only to inevitably go down with the sinking ship along with everyone else. So why I'm saying all this is to show you that we're all in the same boat, as the expression goes. But rather than allowing that to generate hate through grasping and clinging to this world and this existence, we embrace the comradeship, camaraderie, brotherhood, sisterhood that we share with all fellow beings in that same Dharma, and support each other. I'm not quite sure when I read the question again that you've said, I hate this existence and the world, that you're necessarily clinging to existence and the world, because after all you have hatred, aversion, the second or one of these defilements. This you haven't recognized as such. So you're not clinging to existence through the loving of life, the comfort and enjoyment of life. Rather, you have perhaps an nihilistic point of view, in that you view the existence with aversion, with hatred, as opposed to greed, wanting more of it. You want less of it, you hate it. Now this is coming from delusion, the other of those three root causes of our suffering, defilements, or in the Pali, kilesas. And this is just as detrimental to life and the enjoyment of life as greed, clinging to life. That hatred and a nihilistic view of life means you cannot enjoy the life you have and the opportunities you have been so successfully able to attain for yourself by being born into this existence, which can only be as a result of causes and conditions you've put in place previously, in previous lives, or indeed just within this lifespan, if you want to just focus on that at this stage, the causes and conditions you've put in place to arrive at listening to this talk today, listening to talks previously, reading the suttas, listening to the teachings of the Buddha, and associating with like-minded people, those brothers and sisters, whom are fully supporting you. That's come as a result of your good actions of body, speech and mind. Good karma. Karma meaning actions. And all that you've done. You can pat yourself on the back out of appreciation for the good you have done, which is reaping its rewards here and now, in the present. You don't have to believe in future lives or past lives to see that clearly you are blessed with an opportunity that within your own existence isn't so bad. You might view the rest of the world with aversion and hatred. You might view, as a result of that, your own existence with aversion or hatred. But it's not so within the span of each and every breath. If the band is playing in the background, beautiful music, as the ship goes down, and you focus on the body, the breath, until you're unable to, you will allow the body to just gently and slowly relax, and also in turn the mind become calm and tranquil. This is an extreme example, but drawn out over the length of our lifetimes, it is similar. It is not to say that we distract ourselves through entertainment, through music, to try and cover up this realization of the truth. But we use the realization of this truth to inspire a sense of urgency in our practice, to find something that is longer lasting, is more permanent within this lifetime itself at least, than sensual gratification, which in turn only leads to the realization of the insatiable nature of thirst and craving, tanha. Tanha is the Pali word for desire, or in the sense of desire relating to thirst and craving, as opposed to chanda, which is the sense of desire, or desire in the sense of wanting to be able to develop one's mind, increasing wholesome mind states, reducing unwholesome mind states, developing qualities such as metta, loving kindness, compassion, karuna, compassion, mudita, joy, and ultimately upekkha, equanimity. Now, equanimity, upekkha, is one of the 7 factors of enlightenment. The 7 factors of enlightenment are very important to be given consideration of. Even if we haven't attained to enlightenment, by reflecting on its qualities, we have something we can aspire to that isn't grasping, isn't clinging to worldly matters. So, for instance, with upekkha, equanimity, aspiring towards developing equanimity is establishing a quality that cannot be taken away. Amidst all that's going on around you, you've heard this old expression, that sticker, poster, I don't know, that you see on someone's fridge. I think it was a phrase coined in the war, the Second World War, and now I've even forgotten it. Calm, something, maybe it'll come to me in a minute. Keep calm. I can't think of it. But what it's saying is be equanimous, have equanimity, balance. Don't be affected by all that's going on around you. Take action where you can, assist where you can, but not to your own detriment, otherwise you cannot continue to take action, you cannot continue to assist. If you don't assist yourself first, you cannot assist others. So, whilst maintaining your own existence, protecting yourself, you can enable the opportunity to help many more others. And this is what it means by brothers and sisters in aging, sickness and death, brothers and sisters in the Dharma. A coming together of people in the same situation, inclusive of all beings, with a mutual fate, but supportive of that, in that journey towards that inevitable end. So it mightn't be immediate disaster for all in our relatively comfortable existences, but we can recognize the impermanence, that very nature of life and our existence for what it is, allowing us to be inspired by that sense of urgency towards keeping sila, keeping our precepts, firstly, and protecting that, firstly. Because if we're refraining from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and taking of intoxicants, we are unable to harm ourselves or any others, which is the greatest gift we can give to others, the gift of fearlessness. This is extended to all beings, from the smallest of insects to the largest of mammals, an ant to an elephant. We have equal compassion. But through sila, even without having developed metta, loving kindness towards an ant or a stinging centipede or a spider or a slithery snake, with sila we can do no harm. So we may not be all lovey-dovey metta, loving kindness for the slithery insects that might sting us, but by having a firm foundation and basis of sila, we cannot harm them. And they know that, they feel that, and they won't harm you. I sleep here on the floor with my windows and doors open, and have been doing so now for over 2.5 years or so. I'm in my 3rd year here. And rats have come in, snakes have come in, monkeys have jumped on the roof, insects have been around, but nothing has hurt me in the night when I've been sleeping. Cockroaches might crawl over my face. What I don't know, it doesn't matter. They don't harm me because they know I'm of no threat to them. But yes, I've been walking on Pindapata and maybe, not so mindfully, have accidentally disturbed, stepped on a centipede or smaller insect I can't even see. And it'll sting my foot and I'll limp for the next 24, 48 hours. Only because it was in protective mode. I hadn't lost sila, there was no intention to harm that insect. But mindfulness was not quite there. Or sometimes we just cannot see something. Without intention, you still, through accidents, can cause some damage or cause some harm to another being. But as long as it wasn't our intention, then this is neutral karma as opposed to negative karma. Whereas if you pick up a small insect that's about to be squashed by something coming along and move it, this is directly positive karma. So it's very simple, isn't it? There's a huge scope of ways we can use this knowledge, this realization, which after all is nothing new, it's nothing astonishing, nothing magical about it, spiritual, esoteric. It's always been the case. It's just seeing the truth, isn't it? The truth of suffering. It's seeing the truth of the cause of suffering. And what is that? The cause of suffering. Greed, hatred, delusion. Lobha, dosa, moha. So with that commenter who's hating this existence and the world, seemingly from the way you phrase it, because you think about aging, sickness and death a lot. That's coming from hatred, dosa, and delusion, moha. Delusion because you think aging, the contemplation of aging, sickness and death makes you despair of this existence and see it as pointless, perhaps. I'm reading between the lines and guessing a little bit here. But perhaps you're thinking, well, if we're here just to get old and get sick and die, what's the point? Well, the very point of that realization is to inspire you to do something about that. As you've been inspired in previous lifetimes, or during this lifetime through your actions of body, speech and mind, and creation of good karma, have given yourself the opportunity to listen to the words of the Buddha. Either read the suttas or listen to Dharma talks. and explore the opportunities you have within this lifetime of keeping sila. And then, out of this sense of urgency, be determined to develop samadhi. The hatred won't go away immediately, the hatred or resentment of this existence. But if you can dispel the delusion through the simple process of living within the parameters of the Noble Eightfold Path, then you will gradually eradicate hatred. If your suffering comes as a result of clinging, greed, wanting life to go on forever and to have more of the sensory enjoyment it offers, and for it never to be otherwise, that too, through the eradication of delusion, ignorance, firstly, avidya is ignorance, moha is delusion. Moha is more confusion, whereas ignorance is just not knowing, ignoring, if you like, what it is you should know. But that doesn't mean with all of the intellectual knowledge you can learn and recite the suttas, for example, but not know or understand how to apply them to your realization, your real life, everyday activities and experience of that. So it's all well and good intellectually knowing there is aging, sickness and death, but if you don't use that in a positive way, by way of inspiration to practice meditation now, there's nothing to be gained from that intellectual knowledge. That is moha, delusion. You know all this stuff, but you don't use it. You don't meditate. You might even keep precepts, which is the foundation for meditation, but still not have that sense of urgency or inclination towards spending time in samadhi, meditation. Oh, I'll do that when I'm older, when I've got more time, later on in life. But then you will not have the tools when the ship goes down. The main tool being equanimity towards disaster, being unshaken. Those band members playing the music as the ship went down. And you know, if there's any historical people out there and that's just an urban myth and it's not true, then, you know, I understand, but it's still a good analogy, even if it's a fairy story. I don't know of the authenticity of that tale. And it's a long time since I saw the movie. So if that wasn't the case, it's neither here nor there, it doesn't matter. It's a good analogy for equanimity. Those band members playing their oboes, their trumpets, their trombones, or whatever, their French horns they had to hand and available to them, must have had equanimity, and a huge amount of it, to sit and play for the benefit of others. They must have had compassion to sit and play for the benefit of others, mustn't they? They must have had metta, loving kindness, even if it was firstly only for themselves, to do what they love most and love dearly, which is play their beloved music with their beloved instrument. And that inspired mudita joy. So those band members are an example, an analogy of the 4 Brahma Viharas, which means heavenly dwellings or the dwelling place, the living refuge of the gods, which we all have within us, and is no more obvious than when there is devastation or disaster. Most people's natural instinct is to, having saved themselves, to help and assist and save others. So don't see the world through eyes of hatred, picking only the negative snippets of what's going on. And this too can be mainly attributed to this consistent and continuous scrolling of bad news that people do these days with devices in the palms of their hand, enabling them to see all of the world news. This is not all of the world news. What isn't being shown to you, well, in such quantity, is all of the good that's going on in the world. If you travel from one part of the world to the other side of the world, you can travel relatively safely by air or even by land, through many countries, via many countries, and experience nothing but joy, pleasure, fun even, and the company of others. I know people living in war-torn countries who go about their daily business. They're keeping precepts, they're practicing meditation, they're developing wisdom, they're living in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path whilst their cities are being bombed, whilst they have no water or electricity for good parts of the day and sometimes days, and little food. But within their part of that existence, and what is going on immediately around them, that is not going on immediately around you, they have equanimity, metta, compassion, karuna. Sorry, I try and just use English words or Pali or both. You know, it's my mistake when I mix them up like that. I should say loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity, or metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. See, I'm learning and teaching myself as I talk to you to be clearer in our understanding and the way we discuss the Dharma. Not mixing up all of the different languages and translations and interpretations, and not focusing on those differences between interpretations. In fact, not interpreting at all, but simply abiding by, living by the Dharma. As brothers and sisters in aging, sickness and death, or brothers and sisters in the Dharma, we can do that. I've only got to samadhi. We're keeping our sila, our 5 precepts. That's the foundation that enables us to practice meditation. Seeing that this life is impermanent, we won't live forever, and reflecting on aging, sickness and death, very importantly, not just once a week in a formal setting, but continuously throughout one's day, as the writer mentioned there, thinking about aging, sickness and death a lot, should just inspire you to sit and meditate. Because it is only through this practice that you can experience letting go. And this can be the experience of letting go of greed, clinging, hanging on to life, or letting go of hatred, nihilistic views. Well, what's the point of life if it's all going to end? Kind of avijja, ignorant, moha, deluded view. In order that we can, within that context of the Noble Eightfold Path, establish samadhi, right view, which is understanding, not knowing, not just being able to recite, oh, I have right view because I know there's I know there's anicca, dukkha, anatta, the Four Noble Truths. I'm living in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path. But are you? Is it bringing about those heavenly abodes? Are you living like a god, a deva or angel in the heavenly realms whilst still on earth, in whatever the surrounding environment around you is, in whatever is going on around you? Are you able to have joy for others in the ability to be able to share with them your knowledge of that experience you've gained through meditation? The pure awakening to the nature of real metta, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity in the face of all the vicissitudes of life, in the face of adversity, remaining calm. I still haven't thought of that saying. And enjoying all experiences, both good and bad. It's not to say you have to blindly, oh, well, the world's falling apart, but what the hell, you know, I'm going to enjoy myself. No, we help where we can. We don't bury our heads in the sand, but we know that this has always been the case. But continually reminding ourselves of all of the, I should say, lowlights, not highlights, but the highlights of internet feeds. And I don't actually have them or look at them, but from the feedback I get and what I hear, there's very little in the way of positive news. And yes, we've all heard of the 19 monks walking across America. I think nobody has not heard, even a monk without any news feeds here in Sri Lanka has heard about that via yourselves. But that's a kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing that's gone on. And albeit it's going on continually in every other Buddhist country in the world, each and every day, with monks walking across their countries and around the world with no publicity. That never gets a mention. Someone's picked up on this, it's gone from one thing to another, and it's become what they call, I don't know, viral or whatever. It's a good thing, distracting people from all of the bad news, but it's not enough, because it will soon be gone. Like a publicity stunt, if you like. It works for a while, generates a lot of money and interest for a cause, then it's gone. Back to the bad doom scrolling, you call it, don't you? And bad news of the world. So we don't dwell there. Back to what I was saying, you can travel throughout the world and experience nothing but joy and peace and kindness. If you don't have the opportunity to do that in your own neighborhood, smile at your neighbor if you can. Or if they're not nice or they don't like you, keep out of their way. Don't go out of your way to disturb them out of belligerence. Try and become invisible to them. That way you're giving them the gift of peace. They might want to harm you, but if you're invisible and they don't notice you, you will quell their desire to harm. You're helping them directly. How do you become invisible? Just be quiet. Reduce your footprint in the world. Be ignored. This doesn't mean a nihilism, being a nihilistic, hating the world and this existence. It means taking the most enjoyable aspects of it and enjoying them to the maximum there is. The only place there is this available is in meditation. It costs nothing other than a little time. If you don't have time, make time. Wake up an hour earlier. Go to sleep an hour later. What do you lose? 2 hours of sleep. 2 hours of what is a nihilism. There's nothing you can do mindfully in your sleep. You're just escaping in sleep. Your body, your mind only needs so much sleep. Most of us, most of you perhaps, sleep too much. Get enough sleep, otherwise you won't be able to meditate. But just enough. Don't indulge in sleep. This is the biggest waste of time. And the readily available form of nihilism. Oh, I can't stand it, I'm just going to go to sleep. Oh, I don't want to face the day, I'm not going to wake up. We've all done this, haven't we? But if you insist on getting up and starting your day with meditation, you will start to develop loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. You will start to really understand and have samadhi, right view, rather than intellectually know how it should be. Knowing how it should be is not good enough. You have to make it so. The way you can make it so is with samadhi. Concentration. Sama samadhi. Right concentration. Oh, I know people say, oh, it's not concentration, that implies trying too hard and it's effort. Well, it requires also samavirya, right effort, to have concentration. Does your teacher, when you're learning something, ever say, oh, don't concentrate, no, just gently study and allow the knowledge to just gently seep in? No. Your teacher says to you, concentrate, focus your attention, concentrate boy, concentrate girl, otherwise you get a slap round the head, or you did in my day at school. They'd say, Mason, concentrate, whack, like this, you know? I know that sounds harsh and not very Buddhist, but it was kindness. If I didn't concentrate, I was just thinking about this, thinking about that, and I didn't learn anything. As it happens, that was the case, and I didn't learn anything. I'm not very clever at all. Not on paper, for sure. And that's what we do in our meditation. That's not sama samadhi. That's not right concentration. Sitting there thinking about this, thinking about that, thinking about the past, thinking about the future, what we want to eat, what we want to do, all the things we love, and all of the flowery, fluffy pink clouds and such like. Or all the bad that's going in the world and all what's happening and the disasters and how much I hate this existence and the aversion. This is just developing and focusing upon the defilements, the kilesas, greed, hatred and delusion. No, we concentrate on the breath, a meditation object, in order to develop the thinking brain to be able to put all of those other things aside for a while, with the attention fully on one thing and one thing only. And it takes quite a considerable amount of time to develop this skill, which is why we must meditate every day for at least an hour, really. Preferably 2, an hour at the beginning of the day, an hour at the end of the day, at the very least. Then we can develop concentration which isn't straining, isn't trying, isn't harsh, isn't a slap round the head from the teacher, concentrate boy. It is an enjoyable form of relaxation. Concentration can be relaxation. When you watch a movie or you read a novel that's really good, really interesting, really exciting, what do? Do you think about this? Do you think about that? Do you distract yourself with all kinds of ideas of how you save the world or how you don't, or what you can enjoy or what you don't? No, you focus and concentrate on the movie right to the bitter end when you don't know what's going to happen next. Oh, you're really concentrating and focused, but you're also enjoying it, aren't you? Otherwise you wouldn't watch the movie, you wouldn't read the novel if you didn't enjoy it. You'd just put it down or you'd turn it off. Concentration can be enjoyable, can be relaxation. So much I hear in the Buddhist world is about softening the approach, softening everything. Wishy-washy. It's really not that complicated. Samma samadhi, right focus, right concentration, is not to be considered a punishment, but something that can be really enjoyed, like the novel or the movie. And yes, at first, physically it's uncomfortable, mentally it's difficult, but it's practice, not because it's some esoteric, magical, spiritual thing. It's practice makes perfect. If you practice your handwriting as a child, it'll get neat and tidy, and you'll be able to practice your spellings, practice your times tables, you practice learning to ride a bicycle, you practice learning to swim. Eventually you take off the stabilizers, eventually you throw away the floats. You can balance on the bicycle, you can float in the water, you can swim, you can ride a bike. It all takes practice. But the achievement of being able to swim, and the achievement of being able to, or attainment of being able to balance and ride a bicycle, is kind of a like that moment, isn't it? Suddenly you're riding, suddenly you're swimming. Similarly with samma samadhi, suddenly you have right concentration. But you'll never get right concentration, samma samadhi, if you avoid that subject. Oh, I won't concentrate. That seems like a very harsh and un-Buddhist thing to do. No, the Buddha gritted his teeth and pushed his tongue to the roof of his mouth and did all kinds of straining exercises to fight off Mara, those kilesas, or the personification, let's say, mythologically, the personification of greed, hatred, and delusion. At first, to understand and battle against Mara, the personification of greed, hatred, and delusion, lobha, dosa, moha. Through all of that and those ascetic practices, he built strength, like exercising with weights and increasing the weights to build up strength in a muscle of the body. We too, with the focus and the attention and the concentration of the thinking brain, build up strength of focus and concentration to then be able to maintain awareness, conscious awareness on the meditation object for a period of time. It doesn't have to be a long period of time. It might need to be a long period of time. You go with the flow. You allow yourself sufficient time, an hour, to sit. If you can have a few seconds of true focus, samma samadhi, of true mindfulness, samma sati, a major part of this Noble Eightfold Path, within that time period, it's enough to see the benefits of that. And once having seen the benefits of that, like having enjoyed that really good movie or read that really good novel, and concentrated on it, but enjoyed it, once having experienced that in samadhi, You'll want to do it again. You'll want the next movie, the next novel, or the next piece of music. It will just come naturally. You'll just want that. You'll wake up bright and early after a refreshing and much better sleep, because you've developed alongside this concentration, without any effort, you'll develop the qualities of metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, by just simply doing what the Buddha says in order to achieve that, to abide in those heavenly realms. Develop the Brahma Viharas, the homes, the houses of the gods, the palaces of gods, heavens on earth. When you've experienced that, you'll want nothing more than that. And once you've attained that experience, you've established truly right view, along with the realization and understanding of, well, aging, sickness and death, it's anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, suffering and not self. Rather than that just recitation, that rote, those words, you really fully understand it. But also know that it's inspiring you towards enjoying to the maximum that time that we have, and also enabling you to be supportive of others in that practice also, to enjoy their experience of the same. What more kindness can you offer? What more generosity can you have? How better can you serve the world than that way? By way of example. There is no better way to live. So take your heads out of the news and the devices in your hand and look around you at nature. My first reply in my head to that comment was, walk out of your house, go to the nearest park, find a tree and hug it, you know, like in the old hippie tree hugger way. But, you know, just go into nature, enjoy nature. If you can't, look around your room. There'll be a spider making a web somewhere. There'll be some ants crawling, finding 1 grain of sugar and taking it back to their communities. Nature is around us. We are part of nature. You see clearly that you being part of that nature. Brothers and sisters in the Dharma is all a part of nature, along with the ants and the elephants of this world. Enjoy that, like the movie, like the novel. And let's speak as it is. It's all about the Four Noble Truths. Truths. Yeah, you've got to be able to concentrate a bit on this meditation, I'm afraid, if you want to get anywhere. Sitting, reciting metta, loving kindness, metta nusati, or if you're a particularly lustful person, asubha practices, asubha nusati. Our devotional practice, Buddha nusati, Dharma nusati, Sangha nusati, reflecting on the qualities of the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha. Yes, all of these things have their place as tools to warm up, to soften the mind, to develop the understanding of what it is we're trying to achieve. But they're not the practice. That is not meditation. What is meditation? It is samasat samadhi, right concentration. It leads to samasati, right mindfulness, in all of your daily activities. So as you don't step on the ant or the centipede that might be forced to sting you, so that you walk mindfully and carefully throughout life's activities, throughout all the things you do, all of your actions of body, speech and mind, without harming others or causing offence to others. And then through that, samasati, right mindfulness, in all of your daily activities, extending it to appropriate mindfulness in all of those activities, sati sampajana, will help you be able to maintain that focus, that concentration in samma samadhi. So I've heard people say, oh, it's not defilements. That sounds horrible and nasty. Well, that is because they are defilements. They are horrible and nasty. Greed, hatred, and delusion are horrible, nasty things. And I've heard people say, oh, we don't like concentration, it sounds too hard. That's because it is hard. People go to the gym, they don't say, oh, I'm only going to lift the very light weights. In fact, let's get some balsa wood or polystyrene weights in here in order that we can lift really big weights ever so easily and really enjoy our time just waving, wafting polystyrene or balsa wood weights up and down. No, they want heavier and heavier, harder and harder weights to lift in order to build strength. Well, meditation is like that. We want to build strength of focus and attention in our thinking brains. And in order to exercise that thinking brain, it needs pushing. It needs to concentrate. But that doesn't mean it's got to be a horrible thing. It can be that really enjoyable form of concentration, right concentration. Always remember, each of these Noble Eightfold Path factors in the Pali language are preceded by sama, which means not just specifically right or correct, but it's a nice sounding word, sama. It's enjoyable, if you like. Enjoyable view is right view, samaditthi. Ditthi view, like Sakaya Ditthi, is personality view. Kaya body, physical body, and Ditthi view. It's having the view that your physical body and your thinking brain is you, is your personality. Whereas it is not. This physical body and this thinking brain will age, get sick, and die, as we started off with. We understand that. Then you can abandon this wrong view of personality view, Sakaya Ditthi, that is what you are. This is the attainment of understanding anatta, not self. The third of those characteristics of existence, anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, suffering, and not self. This is samaditthi, right view. Now that, if you're interested in that, requires concentration, but it's enjoyable to learn. Listening to this talk requires some concentration, but hopefully it isn't hurting you. I really hope not. Hopefully it doesn't strain you or give you a headache. Hopefully it's enjoyable. And afterwards you will feel happy as to having spent some time listening to Dharma. Albeit informally, but Dharma nonetheless. Coming from our shared experiences. Not just my own, but from someone else's experience of this realization about aging, sickness and death, and how it is affecting them in their life. And then us picking it apart, not in an intellectual way, but seeing why is it that someone hates existence and the world? Well, it's just that defilement, that kilesa, hatred. That's all it is. The word's even there in the question. The answer's there in the question. We eradicate hatred through loving kindness. Never through hatred. The development of loving kindness, yes, comes through metta practice as part of our overall exercises and warm-ups and reflections. But the establishment of that as a quality as a Brahma Vihara comes as a result of firstly having metta, loving kindness towards yourself and giving yourself the opportunity, inspired by the sense of urgency coming through death contemplation, to spend time in samadhi, focused concentration on a meditation object for an hour in the morning, in the evening, 2-3 hours every day. If you start off with 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that's okay. Sooner or later, if you do that regularly, you'll get a taste for it. Chanda, you'll have desire, wholesome desire for it. It is developing wholesome mind states, reducing unwholesome mind states in an enjoyable way that makes you want more. If it wasn't the case, I would not be sitting here today talking to you now. I've lived in some very, let's say, by comparison to the modern world and my previous life within this life, very difficult circumstances and conditioned on this path. And even some might say, those who visit me now, and I've had visitors who've witnessed to this, see my actual living quarters, my kuti as we call it for monks, where I sleep, on the floor, concrete like this, on a mat like this. You've seen it before in the previous videos, before we had this Samadhi Sala. I have very basic living conditions. Very simple basic food, just once a day. Very simple, this same set of robes that I've had all of the time you've known me. I think I've had one switch since I've been making these recordings, perhaps. One exchange. We don't collect robes, we have one set of 3 robes. Us Dutanga monks, let's say, Kamatana monks, working monks or ascetic monks, at least within the asceticism parameters that the Buddha recommends, suggests, allows. He doesn't want us to become emaciated as he did in his first 6 years of practice and all of that harsh concentration, which is, yes, to be abandoned. But he does allow some asceticism in order that those of us with a tendency towards indulging in through the natural defilement of greed can push that aside, burn away that defilement through living simply, eating once a day and not indulging in greed, sleeping on the floor and not indulging in comfort. Some of us need that, some of us don't. Some people can simply sit in comfortable surroundings, read a sutta and become enlightened. Develop 7 factors of enlightenment just from that. But I think they're very few and far between, and I've never met someone of that nature. The people whom I've met, whom have clearly exhibited those factors of enlightenment, and I won't say whether they're a sotapanna at the first stage of enlightenment or an arahant in the final stages of enlightenment, but clearly exhibit equanimity, loving kindness, compassion and joy. Clearly exhibit generosity, clearly are maintaining sila at all costs to their own comfort. And the far greater and broader supportive structure of the bhikkhu or bhikkhuni's sila, their extra 227 or 311 precepts over and above those core 5. Those individuals I've met have been in similarly ascetic environments such as that I live in and have lived in for the last 10 or 11, 12 years. They're the teachers. They're the ones that have inspired me. They're the ones that can inspire you. They're the people who have practiced the Noble Eightfold Path and attained to enlightenment. This is what you should listen to. This is who you should see as an example. It doesn't mean you have to live in the same conditions, but by way of their example, they've done it for you. As much as the Buddha, he experienced his 6 years of asceticism for us, so as we don't have to do that, but allows us just those limited Dhutanga practices, ascetic practices, in order that we can, if needs be, train our defilements away through practice. This is the opportunity now we have as brothers and sisters in the Dharma, so I hope you can please take something from that and use it and practically apply it and benefit and become enlightened within this lifetime, as you all can, we all can. So until next time, be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.